You're listening to the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast, episode 214. Welcome to the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast. I'm your host, Paula Price, lawyer turned certified executive coach. This podcast was created to empower women lawyers just like you to create a life and practice you love. Join me every week for a break from the hustle so we can focus on you, what you truly want, and how you can create it. If you're over the overwhelm, done with putting out fires, and ready to redefine success on your own terms, you're in the right place. Ready for today's episode? Let's dive in. Happy mid-year. If you're listening to this episode when it goes live, we're at the end of June 2025. Yes, that means we are at the midpoint of the year. And I am going to invite a discussion today about why it is the perfect time to recalibrate the goals that you have for the year. Now, before we do that, I also wanted to mention that it just so happens to be my birthday on the day that this episode goes live. And so if you're here on that day, thank you so much for being here and for helping me to celebrate this birthday. It means so much to me when you tune in to know that you are present, know that you're engaged. And so I just wanted to say thank you for the gift of your presence, for the gift of you being within the community that I am creating. And I'm so glad you are here. Now, today, what we're going to focus on are 3 compelling reasons why mid-year is the perfect time to refresh your goals. Now, we're going to start out by reflecting on when we usually get excited about setting goals, which is the new year, right? January 1st. That's when everyone gets really excited about New Year's resolutions. And at that point of the year, it's dark. You're coming off the holidays, whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or all of the above or none of the above. And you're entering this year having been pretty busy throughout the course of the calendar year. You're starting with a fresh slate. If you're a lawyer who records time, you've got your billing target back at 0. You've got projects, you've got goals, you've got these big dreams. And when you're looking at them from the vantage point of January, anything seems possible. And so you might set these really lofty goals for yourself. And then what happens is life happens. And by the time you get to June, you might notice that you're not exactly where you wanted to be, right? Things get busy with the kids. You might get projects at work that you hadn't anticipated back in January. You might get started on some of your goals and realize that they're a lot more complicated than you thought you were, or you're a lot less engaged than you thought you would be. And you might take this as a sign that goals are bad, that you're bad because you're not completing your goals, and that really you shouldn't set any more goals because it's just going to result in this feeling of failure and this uncomfortable place in June where you set the goals and now you're nowhere on track. So let's just put this off and maybe next year we'll try again. So that's kind of the all or nothing thinking that can get you into situations where you abandon your goal. Okay, that's fine, but then there's not really a plan to move forward. And if you're like me and you don't like not having a plan, that can mean that you go into your summer months kind of wondering, right? Like, am I on track? And can you really enjoy your summer vacation if you're not really sure if you're going to get to where you want to be in December? So what we want to do is find a way to get you feeling confident, get your goals refreshed so that you've got that feeling of ease as you go into the balance of the year. So I'm going to share with you 3 compelling reasons why this time of year is actually the perfect time for you to refresh your goals. And at the end of today's call, at the end of today's podcast episode, I will share a bit more information about 2 opportunities that we have to work together where I can support you with your goals. One of them is a free webinar that I'm offering on Thursday, June 26th. So that's actually the day after this podcast episode goes live. And the other opportunity is a more comprehensive one. It's a full 6-month program that starts in July 2025. So stay with me if you're interested in hearing more about that. I'll share a few more words about that at the end. So let's dive in. What are 3 compelling reasons? Why is it that this is the perfect time of year for you to refresh your goals? Why is it potentially even better than the new year as an opportunity for goal setting? So the first compelling reason is that Unlike in January, where you may have been making your goals in the context of a vacuum without a lot of information, you now have 6 months worth of data to work with. Now, think back to where you were in January, right? I mean, you're coming out of the holidays, the days were dark, you've got this unbridled ambition for what 2025 might reveal. And think about the goals that you set back then. Think about what you were feeling, think about what you were doing, and what goals did you put on your resolution list for the year. Now, by June, you have been busy, you're heading into the summer, and maybe you're not exactly where you thought you were going to be. And again, this is not your fault. This is the reality of trying to implement ideas. It's a lot harder than it sounds. When you say to yourself, I'm going to go to the gym every day, and then reality strikes and you have every intention of going to the gym. It's a Tuesday at 5 p.m. and then a call comes in, or you get a call from your nanny and your kid needs to see you right away, or your partner was going to do the pickup, but they can't do the pickup, so you need to do it yourself, or somebody else is called, or you've got a work emergency. So there's all these reasons why it's going to stand in the way. So it's actually a lot harder to implement in practice than it is to have that idea. Now, it might be something external, like you can't get to the gym because there's been a scheduling kerfuffle, or it can also be internal. You set a big, scary goal and it's intimidating, and so you want to push it off. So the first compelling reason then for you to make your goals or refresh your goals in June as compared to January is that by the time you get to June, you've got a lot more data that you can use to decide about your goals. Are these the right goals for you? Are you going to move forward with them? And the best way to get that data is to ask yourself questions. So a couple of questions you can ask yourself. Very simple, very straightforward. These are going to give you lots of really excellent information about yourself, about your goals. Is number one, what went well? And you get to celebrate what went well. So again, if you're kind of rushing around day to day, chances are you're not spending a lot of time thinking about all the incredible things that you have accomplished already in 2025. Let me repeat that. You have accomplished so many incredible, wonderful, amazing, hard, difficult, challenging, worthwhile, useful things over the course of the year. And chances are you've barely stopped to catch your breath and give yourself credit for it. So let's do that right now. Let's celebrate you and all the amazing things that you have done up until this point of the year. Now, if you're human, which I know you are, you have a negativity bias that is built in already. It's a survival mechanism to keep you safe. There is a reason why if the food is off and it smells a bit funky, you're not going to eat it. That is your negativity bias working in your favor. But if your negativity bias is keeping you from seeing the good in a situation, it might be preventing you from appreciating yourself. Now, with lawyers, that negativity bias is even more heightened because you've been trained to be looking out for the problems. You want to see the typo in the email. You want to notice that the client's name is spelled wrong in every single document that you were about to send. You want that negativity bias so that you can see what needs to be fixed and you can go ahead and fix it. But we also want to know that that negativity bias, while extremely useful in some situations, isn't so useful when it comes to appreciating how incredible you are. So again, let's go back to thinking about all the things that you've done already this calendar year. And I'm going to encourage you to think about three things that you are really proud of. And if you can't feel really proud, maybe semi-proud. What are 3 things you've done this year that you feel proud of? So if I go to my list, to be honest, the top thing I'm proud of is my family. The way that we have been operating this year feels so good. And we had a tough year last year. And when I compare last year to this year, when I look at where we were back in June 2024 compared to June 2025, I am in love with the fact that we are where we are. That is probably the biggest, most satisfying thing that I feel proud of this calendar year so far. There are other things that I'm proud of. I'm proud of being conscientious about my physical and mental health. I'm proud of being conscientious of my relationships, of my career, of choices I've made in my coaching practice, things that I've accomplished in terms of coaching, relationships that I've had, presentations that I've delivered. There are a number of things that I feel proud of. And I would encourage you to think about those things for yourself as well. And it doesn't need to be a super long list. I'm encouraging you to think of 3 for now. So what are 3 things that you can think of, whether it's work, family, relationships, where you feel good? So that's the first place where you're going to gather some data. Now, the second thing that you're going to ask yourself is what isn't working? Because as much as things will be working in your favor, you're also going to see where you are not where you want to be. And the reason that I'm going to encourage you to do this and write it down as well, write down 3 things if you can, or just identify them mentally while you're listening to this episode, is that when you force yourself to actually think about how many things are actually not working, chances are it's going to be a lot less than the number that you think, right? If you've got those thoughts swirling around in your mind, it might feel overwhelming, right? We go back to that negativity bias. But when you go to sit down and actually think about what are 3 things that aren't working, you might notice that there's only 3, right? Or there's only 1, or the things that you thought were really big aren't actually such a big deal. This will show you where you need to do some work. And when you start writing these things down and you give some more thought to them, you'll gain a better understanding of why it is that you're not exactly where you want to be. So the first compelling reason for you to do a mid-year refresh, a check-in on your goals, is to gather the data. Gather the data so that you're not making a decision about the rest of the year in a vacuum. You actually have fresh new information that you can use. And that will bring you to the second compelling reason about why this is such a great time to do a refresh, and that is clarity. And I love clarity, and people often come to me seeking clarity, and you might also love clarity, and yet it's one of those things that can feel so elusive. And what I'm inviting you to think about is how when you sit down and start putting the data on paper, you will start to gain clarity about your goals. You will start to see whether or not a goal that you have set for yourself is a good goal. It's a goal that you actually want to pursue. And what you realize is that you don't have the right structures and supports in place to actually carve out the time to go after it. Or you might realize that you set a goal that in itself probably isn't the right goal for you. So if you're not where you want to be in relation to one of your goals, chances are there's either a problem with the goal itself or there's a problem with the circumstances that surround that goal. So turning to that first problem then, if your goal is not compelling, what has probably happened there is that you set a goal in January without a lot of experience perhaps, thinking it was a really good idea. But when it came down to actually executing, you realize that what is involved is more than you're willing to give up in exchange for that goal. So I have a very small example. There's a course that I've actually wanted to take for a couple of years now, and it was on my to-do list for a while. And recently I went back to my to-do list and I did a bit of digging. And I decided that yes, that's an interesting course. Yes, if I had all the time in the world, I would love to take it, but it's not particularly aligned with the work that I'm doing right now. And I feel like the time commitment would be way more than I'm willing to invest for that particular goal. It's a goal that is out of alignment. So you might find that you've set some goals where when you actually sit down and you realize the cost, and you weigh that cost relative to the value of that goal, you realize it's just not an aligned goal. And so you let it go. Now, other times what you might find is that the goal itself reflects something that you do want, but the shape of it is a bit off. So I'll give you an example to illustrate here. Physical movement and health are very important to me. And I used to start every year with a commitment to myself that I would go to the gym every five times a week or whatever it was. I would, tell myself I'd go to workout classes. And this was something that I would repeatedly do and never follow through with. And it took me a while to figure out what the problem was. And it's not that I don't like movement. It's not that I don't value health. The problem is that I do not like the gym. I do not like having to physically go to a space to do a workout. I don't like the air inside of a gym compared to, for example, being outside. I don't like having other people yell at me and tell me to do particular exercises. I don't like that it has to be a full hour or whatever time commitment is involved. I don't like that it's usually an inconvenient time for me. I don't like all these things. I don't like having to do it in the afternoon, but I don't like doing it first thing in the morning either because it's too much work. So for me, now this isn't to say that this is your experience of going to the gym, But for me, it's this hard no. So of course, if I set that up as my means to movement, I'm going to set myself up for failure. So instead, what I realized a few years ago is that I actually have forms of movement that I love. Basically, moving outside, walking or running are my favorites. And what that allows me to do is to have a routine where I can go whenever I want. I don't have to go on somebody else's schedule. There's very little equipment involved. I can listen to a podcast. I can talk on the phone. I can listen to none of the above and just let my mind wander. I can go to different destinations. I mean, there's all this freedom and flexibility, and I'm still getting the goal of movement. So for you, you might think about the goal that you have. There's this goal, and the substance of the goal is meaningful to you. It might be connection, communication. It might be career advancement. It might be something related to your work. It might be related to your health goals. And the issue isn't so much that the goal is not the right goal. It's just the way that you've set it up is not a way that you're actually going to execute on it. So think about what goals you might have and whether or not these are the goals that align with your true desires, your true values or not. So maybe you think you want to make partner at your firm, but at this stage, you're not really willing to do what it takes to get there. You might want to be a judge, but this is not the right time for you to commit to a schedule where you're going to be required to travel because you've got young kids at home. It might be the opposite. You might think to yourself, I'm thinking of that partner example, where maybe you've moved in-house or you've moved into a position that doesn't have that type of structure and you realize you actually missed that. And so you want to go back into an environment where you've got that opportunity. It might also be that you think, okay, I want to join a board or I want to volunteer. Or I want to have some sort of a formal role that is a leadership role in your community. And then you realize that actually there's too much structure there. It doesn't really fit with your schedule right now. Something else would be a more suitable way for you to get that same result, that same underlying objective, but without some of the bells and whistles that are attached. So that's one reason that your goal might not be working, is that it's just not aligned, right? In which case either you can abandon it or tweak it. And then the other challenge might be that you just don't have the time, right? You don't have enough support in place to actually make progress with your goals. And I see this a lot, especially with lawyers, is that you've got a goal that's important to you, but you're already so busy. And so you're having a really hard time fitting it in. So think about what that might be for you. If I think about my own New Year's resolutions, my own goals, one of the goals I have is to move houses, to finish a bunch of house projects and then move. And so my husband and I were working quite diligently on our house projects. We kind of fell off track around March when the kids had their break. We haven't really gotten back onto that track. So I know that I need to make that a priority. And how does that work? Well, it usually means either finding a way to bring in some help, get other people to help you with your goal, maybe letting a few things go so that you can free up some time. It might also mean taking a different approach, right? Is there a strategy that you can use that would make it easier for you to do something? So think about what goals you might have that are goals that you might need a little bit more support for. So if you're not on target billing wise and you want to meet your target, you need to meet your target, you might need to find ways to support yourself by freeing up more time that you would have available for work, better strategies to manage your time. It might also mean, let's say you want to have more business development in your practice and you feel like you don't have time for that. That might mean freeing up some time. It might be working in smaller chunks of time. I've had clients do that where, they really wanted to work on business development for, say, 2-hour blocks here and there, realizing that's not really feasible right now. But if they broke it into smaller chunks and found activities that fit within those chunks, that would work for them. It might mean writing versus speaking or vice versa. So thinking about different ways that you could support yourself by creating opportunities, creating windows of time where you can actually follow through on that work. So here's the thing. You set the goal, it's not really working, and using that data, you realize that either you have the wrong goal, you have a goal that needs to be adapted, or you don't have time. And so what you need to do is create time. You now have clarity about what you want going forward, and that brings you to the next step, which is creating a plan. So you'll recall the first step is when you do this process, you get more data. From that data, you're able to gain clarity. And with that clarity, we're now going to make a plan. And here's the thing. When you're making a plan in January, you're kind of looking at a period of time ahead of you where chances are you're going to hit the ground running. Now, I know some people take vacations early in the year, but most people save their vacation, especially if you've got kids, to the summer. And, if you're setting yourself up with a vacation in January, it's a little bit different, right? I mean, I never liked doing it because I always felt behind in terms of billable hours, but for some people that works. And if that works for you, great. I certainly don't want to encourage you to change that. But typically you're going to January hitting the ground running. Whereas in June, you've been running for about 6 months. Chances are you've got a window of time coming up ahead of you. A lot of people are taking vacation. So practices tend to slow down over summer months. Some of them totally slow down. And so you're going to a different phase. And this can be a little bit disconcerting because if you don't check in at this time, you might notice you're not quite as busy as you normally are. You might feel a bit worried about that. You might try to take vacation, but you never really feel fully relaxed during that vacation. And instead of enjoying your summer, instead of enjoying your downtime, you find that unsettled feeling of not getting enough done. And it's kind of like when you bring work home in the evening, you pack your bag and you have every intention of doing it. But then you get home, you have dinner, you feel settled. Maybe you're chatting with your loved ones. Maybe you're watching TV. Next thing you know, you've got this bag of work that you haven't touched and you feel a little bit guilty because on the one hand, you meant to do it. On the other hand, you didn't. And maybe you weren't fully able to be present because you kept thinking, well, I'll get to the work at 9:30 or I'll get to the work at 10, I'll get to the work at 11. And you never do. So you feel a bit guilty about that. You haven't fully maximized that time away from the office. So we don't want that to be your summer. We want you to plan for your summer in such a way that you feel good about the time that you're going to take off, knowing that when you go back wholeheartedly after your break, that you're going to be on track for the goals that you have for the balance of the year. So what's really great about this, if you're spending the time to recalibrate your plan end of June, early July, and you know what's coming for the balance of the year, you get to enjoy your summer months, knowing that you've got a plan in place and you can start setting things up, some scaffolding for the fall so that you can hit the ground running when everybody else is coming back from their vacations, etc. And if you do this over time, then you end up with better alignment, right? Because we're not operating in June off January's goals. We are operating in June and July off the goals that you're setting at this time of year. So you're refreshing them, you're recalibrated, you are going to find yourself over time in greater alignment. What you're planning to do and what you're doing are more aligned with each other. And it also lets you let go of that goal shame. So if you've ever felt like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, I set a goal and I didn't achieve it, and then you don't want to set another goal, instead, you have a completely different relationship with your goal, which is, yes, I set a goal. It taught me all this great information. And whether or not you keep that goal or set a different goal or abandon it or whatever, you do that with knowledge. And you do that with knowledge moving forward in that way where you are now having that greater alignment. So to wrap it up, to summarize what we've talked about today, then why is this such a great time for you to refresh your goals? Number one, unlike the beginning of the year, you have data, 6 months of data that you can draw upon to assess objectively where you are at. As a result, you have greater clarity over the nature of your goals, whether you've chosen the right goal but have the wrong strategy, or you have the wrong goal and you need to let it go or find a different one. And finally, it allows you to make a plan that will set you up for success over the rest of the year. You've narrowed down what you actually want to put on your calendar, and you've also given yourself an opportunity to plan your summer where you've got a bit more space to relax and reflect, and then move into the rest of the year after the summer break with precision and with focus. Now, if you would like my support to help you create a plan for the balance of the year, you can join me. There is a free webinar. It will be taking place the day after this podcast episode goes live, which is June 26th at noon Pacific time. The information to register will be in the notes with this episode. If you can't find it or if you miss it, send me a note. I'd be happy to send you a link to the recording. And what we're going to do there is go through a process where you will do the evaluation. You will set yourself up for the balance of the year. You'll create a plan. So you can do that with me. We'll do it workshop style. It'll be great. You will feel more established and set up for the balance of the year. Now, the other way that we can work together is more comprehensive. This is the 6-month group coaching and mastermind program that I offer for women lawyers. It gives you an opportunity to take the goals that you're setting and to run with them within the framework of a community that is there to support you, We will go month to month with a different theme each month, each of which is designed to support you, which is helping you gain clarity, giving you the accountability, the encouragement, the acknowledgement. These are women who are like-minded, who are there to support you. And the curriculum is one that will be transformative for you. The idea here is to help you raise your awareness about the goals that you set for yourself, who you are in becoming who you are becoming in reaching those goals. We go deep into obstacles, the challenges that are inevitably going to come up when you set your sights on a big goal. We're going to talk about confidence and how to feel that sense of confidence as you stretch and reach beyond your current capacity. We talk about creating boundaries around the things that are important to you, how to have those difficult and delicate conversations. We talk about sustainable growth. How do you do this in a way that feels good, that feels sustainable? We also talk about time management. We talk about transitions. And in addition to group calls, there are 2 group calls every month on the second and fourth Wednesday of each month at noon Pacific time. We also have calls, you and me, private coaching calls, where I can help you specifically with whatever challenges and opportunities you want my help with. So those are 2 ways that we can work together. I would absolutely love the opportunity to help you to make the balance of the year feel spacious and productive so that you can reach that professional success that you are striving for, while also maintaining the vitality, the well-being, the personal health that you long for. So this is what I have to share with you today. I am so glad that you joined me for today's podcast episode. If you have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to me. I always love hearing from you. And I would love the opportunity to get to know you, to support you, and to help you to celebrate in December 2025 exactly what it is that you want to accomplish this year. So thanks again for joining me. I'll see you next week. If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to miss an episode, subscribe and follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you haven't already, please leave a rating and review. Your feedback will help me create a podcast that's tailored to your needs and goes straight to the heart of what matters to you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast. If you want more information, visit www.thejoyfulpractice.com. See you next week.